Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. Thank you for having another listen, guys. Just before we get into the show, just want to talk to you about our new sponsor that's come on board, Books and Gifts Direct. Books and Gifts Direct is Australia's largest direct seller of books and gifts. They sell their products in lunchrooms, reception desks, and they are in more than 25,000 workplaces in Australia. Their books and gifts sell up to 70% off recommended retail price, and as the largest direct seller of books and gifts across Australia, they have a strong buying power, and without the overheads of a shop front, they can afford to pass on significant savings. So guys, if you want to take a look at this, the link will be below in the description. But guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into the show. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. I do appreciate you guys always listening. A lot of support. It's really, really great to see. So guys, this episode's going to be a little bit of the wrap-up within the weeks of the NBA from my previous podcast. So guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into the show. Welcome to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. All right, guys, back for another episode of the podcast. So, guys, this one's going to be a wrap-up of the week that's just gone by. There's been a little bit of milestones, a little bit of interesting topics, I reckon, that's come past within this week's NBA. First one I'm going to talk about, guys, and it's probably the biggest storyline within the NBA the past couple months, I think. I would definitely say it would be, and that's Mr. Steph Curry finally passing the three-point record, is now the all-time leading three-point made leader within the NBA in history. That, guys, for me, just solidifies him. If not, we already knew he was the best three-point shooter ever. It solidifies him now as the best three-point shooter ever. I think for him to do it in such a short amount of games, I watched a lot of podcasts and videos and just a lot of general people talking about the record, and they said it can be broken. I think if he has another 3 to 4 years of peak, I think this record probably won't ever get chased down, I would say, because he's done it in far less games than what Reggie and Ray did, and he's able to score three-pointers just crazily. Like, there's never been a shooter like him. There's never really been a player like him, if you ask me. I think he's a generational player, and it's crazy to say that because there's a lot of generational players within the NBA right now. Like, you've got LeBron, KD, Giannis himself. They're all, for me, generational players. Like, they're once-in-a-generation player. Like, we haven't really seen players like that before. So, it's crazy to say that, but he is a generational player, and I think him even coming out and saying, yeah, I'm the best three-point shooter ever, it's not cocky. It just shows you that you put in all the work, the effort, you're going to get the rewards, and you're going to get the results, and I'm very happy of Steph. I'm happy that he did. I like this. I like that he did it at New York in the Madison Square Garden, because that's probably the biggest stadium ever, but it would have been really, really cool to see him do it at Golden State, because Golden State it's his home. It's where he's made, so many more three-point shots compared to everybody else, and I'm just super happy with that, and I just think it was so cool to see him do it, and the sheer jubilation on his face, it was really cool to see it as a basketball fan. If you don't find that enjoyable and happy and exciting, like, I don't know what you're going to find enjoyable and happy, because that was a really, really, really good moment, and he was able to have his family there, and they had a little celebration in the change room, because it's history. Like, we might not ever see this ever be broken ever. So it was really, really cool to see, and I think it's very exciting to see. I think the next record we'll probably see broken is probably LeBron becoming the top point scorer ever. I think that's probably going to be the next one. I definitely think he can do it. He just needs to stay healthy, but I still think he can do it. But for me, guys, that was the best storyline in the NBA this year, if you ask me. I think it was so cool to see. It's really, really good to see Steph Curry be healthy and just the Warriors being good, because we've seen them for the past couple of years be up and down and inconsistent, but this is the Warriors we're used to, the Warriors of old, and it's really, really great to see. Next storyline I want to talk about, guys, and I dabbled on them a little bit in the previous, not the All-Star ratings. I talked about their team. I said it's hard for me to put an All-Star in their team, but the Cleveland Cavaliers, guys, I don't know if you know, they're the third seed in the East, and right now in the power rankings in the NBA, they're the third best team in the NBA right now, like currently. And like, if you were to tell me the Cleveland Cavaliers would be the third seed in the East when there has been 27 to 30 games, so you look at that, 10 or 11 games underneath half of the season, I would have said, no way. They've played 19 wins, 12 losses, so 19, 29, 31 games. They played 31 games and they're the third seed in the East. That is extraordinary for me. I would not have expected it, especially when Colin Sexton went down too. Like, that was their main player. He was really, really good for them. But I think Kobe Altman and their the GM and their head coach JB Biggerstaff need to get more love, because a lot of the moves that they had done were questionable. You know, I had never really watched Evan Mobley, so I didn't really know anything about him. But a lot of people said that was a really, really good move to take, and I backed them because I backed Bill Simmons a lot, and he said he's going to be probably the best player in the draft. And I didn't know that. I didn't know, but looking at it now, he might have been better off being in Detroit as the first pick. He could have been, you know, a bit of a small forward, a point forward there. He could have been doing a little bit more. I know they had Jeremy Grant, but that's a debate for probably 2 to 3 years' time when we actually really see them, you know, solidify themselves within the NBA. But Cleveland, it's not like they're beating teams that are just terrible. Like, they're beating good teams. Like, they beat Milwaukee this past game. You know, they're beating teams that they usually wouldn't have back last year. Like, they just wouldn't have. And you look at their roster, Jarrett Allen's a really good player. Darius Garland's become, you know, a serviceable player. He's averaging 19.1 points a game, 7 assists. Like, he could definitely be a person that you could throw in as an all-star this season, because I think now, the way I look at it, they have to have an all-star in that team. And it's hard because they do it by committee. You know, Jarrett Allen also averages 16 and 10. You know, you've got Lauri Markkanen averaging 13. You've got Evan Mobley, who's one of my favorite players within the NBA right now. You know, he's averaging 13 and 8. You know, so it's hard, but I think there needs to be an all-star from Cleveland in that team. You know, Kevin Love's averaging 12 and 7 off the bench. That's good service. You know, you're getting good service from him. And it was funny because everyone was on their back to say, you got to trade Kevin Love, get rid of the cap. But he's doing what he would have done at another team, probably come off the bench, limited minutes, and just do a role. And I think it's great to see him stick with Cleveland and not ask for that trade, because now they're building something that could be really good. You know, most of their roster's young still. Like, Kevin Love's like one of the oldest players. You know, Ricky Rubio too has had a bit of a, I wouldn't say a rejuvenation of his career, but we're finally seeing, like, Ricky Rubio is a basketball savant. Like, he's a player that, if you're a real pure fan of basketball, you would love watching him play, because he's such a clean player to watch. A lot of the stuff he does goes unnoticed, underrated. He's a very, very good point guard. He's a player that you'd love to have on your team. So for me, I'm really excited with what Cleveland's building. This could be a fluke. It could not be. I don't know, because there's still a lot of time to go within the NBA, but I think it's really, really just refreshing to see a team that's come from, you know, not being in the playoff picture for years, you know, since they lost LeBron when he went to LA, to now being clear-cut in the playoffs. You know, they'd be the third seed right now. You know, they might beat, you know, a Philadelphia if they had a series. They might get into the second round. And that's crazy for me. That's a crazy thing to think of. So I just had to talk about Cleveland for a little bit on this podcast, because I think they're just a team that you need to talk about. They're too good right now to not talk about. So that for me, that's my little Cleveland take on the podcast. Next topic I'm going to talk about, guys, COVID is really affecting the league right now. And Jalen Rose had I listened to his podcast, Jalen Jacoby, and he said, do they bring the bubble back, but like at a different way to do the bubble? Because obviously the bubble they did last time was very hard, but there's like 60 to 70 players within the NBA now in COVID protocols. Coaches are in protocols. Like, you look at the Sacramento Kings, they have their coach, who's their current coach right now, which was Alvin Gentry, out with COVID protocols. So they've already had 3 head coaches in this past season. That's crazy. That's nuts, because obviously they fired Luke Walton, which is it the right choice? Who knows? But Sacramento always makes, you know, choices just purely based off sheer reaction. They don't really think about their choices. They make a lot. The last best choice they made was drafting Tyrese Halliburton, but, you know, apart from that, they kind of fuck up their team. But going on the COVID case here, guys, yeah, it's weird. Like, it can really take over this league. Like, say, you know, you looked at Chicago, I think they had 10 players within their team in COVID protocols. Like, that's insanity. That's crazy. Like, they couldn't even play games. They had to get postponed. You know, and I see that NBA's got a new rule out where if someone gets COVID, they can bring in players, you know, 1 to 2 players, you know, to 10-day minimum contracts. But, sorry, pardon me, guys. Yeah, it's just crazy right now. It's a bit of insanity. I would like to see I'm wondering to see what is going to happen. And I'm just not too sure what they're going to do. I'm not too sure what they're going to do, but they need to do something for it. Because if these players keep catching COVID and their games keep getting postponed, it might drag out the season for another week or two, and that's not good for the NBA because we kind of had that part where we're kind of finally over the COVID. The players aren't getting COVID. The season's going back to normal, but now it's getting scary. Like now something might have to happen where they don't let fans in. I've seen Toronto not let 50% of the arena. The NBA might need to go back to certain things like that because I think it might help them. But it is a scary thought. Like COVID could stuff up the season. I don't think it will. I think they've realised the NBA how to get the season going, but it's just something I needed to talk about because COVID it's still relevant, guys. Like people forget, like it's still a relevant thing. Like COVID's probably going to be around forever now. So you got to live with it. You got to learn to live with it, and you got to deal with it. So hopefully the NBA finds some new methods and theories that can help them, keep within the NBA season. But that was a little bit about the COVID. Next topic I want to talk about, guys, and I think they've been in headlines for a little bit, but Indiana, the Pacers, there was a report, a couple of weeks ago saying, they want to blow up their team, they want to go into a full rebuild, and now that they're kind of not, they're kind of just treading water, they're not going to be in the playoffs at all. They're the 13th seed within the NBA, within the East. They're 13 and 18, they can get the season turned around, but when you hear a report like that saying, they're looking to, tear it up, blow it up, that's something that you just hear okay, they're going to do it. And I think, for me, it's the best choice because there's not a lot of free agents I can remember that go to Indiana. Like the last free agent I can remember that was a pretty decent free agent was David West. And that, for me, he went there because they did pay overs for him. They had to pay more money to get him there. But I think Indiana need to do what Oklahoma City are doing, rebuild, maybe not go all the draft picks and the assets of what they do, but rebuild, build from within, create a great platform, a great sturdy foundation, and build up. And I think they've got a really good head coach. I think they got Rick Carlisle, who's a great coach. He'll do a great job with a rebuild, if you ask me. But they got to really, find if they're going to do the rebuild, do it. But if not, compete. Try to be competitive. Don't be like the Sacramento Kings. Don't be like that. That literally, they are an NBA franchise that is waiting to get relocated. So I would say definitely, guys, if you're an Indiana fan and you listen to this, call for the rebuild. Trade Karis LeVert, trade Miles Turner, trade Domantas Sabonis, trade them to places where you can get assets, where you can build, build stock, build where you build you can get first round picks where you can trade them for other things. Like OKC, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but they're not going to take all these draft picks. They're going to trade a lot of them. So do something, or you have to do something if you're Indiana, and I think the rebuild's the right way to go. And Miles Turner's come out, he isn't happy. A team he could look to go to and look to trade for is going to Charlotte. He'd be really good for them. He'd be the defensive anchor that they need. I just think that the thing is, what are they going to give up for him? Will they give up a Mason Plumlee? Would Indiana even want a Mason Plumlee? That's the thing. Would you really want Mason Plumlee? I don't think I would, to be quite as honest. But that's neither here or there, and hopefully they can just get assets. So for me, Indiana, blow it up, do something a little bit change. You're not going to win a championship, so what's the point? Next topic I want to talk about, it's a bit more of a positive topic too. Isaiah Thomas, finally back in the league. I think it's hard, for him being out so long, and the journey he's had, it's been a tough journey, man. We really forget, what this guy's gone through. It's been a tough journey, He went from being an MVP candidate in 2017 to, hip surgery, not being healthy, getting traded while being injured, getting traded again from the Cavs, and then, signing minimum contracts at clubs, not being able to, fully do what he wanted. And now it's just good to see him get back, and the redemption story, it's real and it's alive. And if you're a fan of basketball and just people and comeback stories, you have to be a fan of Isaiah Thomas because he's such a genuine person. I think he's a good guy. He's one of the better guys in the league, and I just like everything about him. One of my mates actually met him out once and got to talk to him, and he followed him on Instagram, and he did all these things. And you don't have to do that, but he did it, and that just shows me the true ilk and character of a person. So for me, I'm really happy with what he's doing. I'm really happy that the Lakers picked him up. Hopefully they sign him for the rest of the season because he could be a pretty decent player for them. He'd come off the bench, give him a little bit of impact, give him a little bit of energy with Carmelo. He's a point guard. He's not a great floor general, but he can do a good job for them. He can do a serviceable role for them. And the Lakers need as much help as they can get. They're still a a disaster. But yeah, that's just my little talk on IT. It's great to see him back. And my last topic today, guys, for the podcast, it's about OKC, as I previously mentioned. But is OKC going to be a team where they're going to be better than what? I have written this down. Can OKC be better earlier than expected? So my thing is, I thought within 5 years' time they'll be a powerhouse, but I think within 3 years' time they can compete for a playoff spot because Shea's getting better and better. Josh Giddey's looking like, he might not be an all-star, but he's looking like a great piece. He's looking like a piece that can really work. You know, I like a lot of the players they have, Lou Dort, but Shea's a player that can definitely be like an all-star caliber player. I think he falls under the radar there because he's obviously in OKC and no one really watches OKC, but he's got something about him where he's got that gene where he can just gets it done. Like he's just got that instinct, and that for me, you can't really teach that or train that in a person. They kind of have it or they don't. So I think for them, having that great foundation piece, franchise player piece, it's really good for them. And you look back, if say LA didn't trade him, say LA traded like maybe Pat Bev, you know, or Lou Williams, like, and they had Shea still, like, it could you could be talking about Shea, Kawhi, PG as a big three of doom. Like, honestly, that would have been nuts. But I just think OKC too, they have a great front office, and I think their coach Mark Dagnall, I might have got his name wrong, he's doing a really good job. Like, their roster's not that good, but he's doing a great job, and their roster can be getting better and better within years to come. So I think they're definitely going to be a really good team in the future. And I just needed to say, like, it's just an interesting topic. Like, can they be better than what people expect? Like, I think they can. I actually think they'll be an all right team within 3 or 4 years. Kind of like Memphis. Like, Memphis were a team where I thought they were going to be average for a long time after they traded Marc Gasol, Mike Conley. You know, they had Jaren Jackson there, but, like, they were still, like, had Ja Morant. You didn't really know what they were going to be. But they're now just, like, in Ja's third year, they're the 4th seed. So I don't know if they can be that good, but I definitely think that they can be somewhere that's, like, sneaky good. Like, and they can win. You know, they might get 25, 30 wins this season. They definitely might do that because they're already on 10 wins at the moment. And like, the prediction for them was 17 wins. Like that's not a lot of wins within the NBA. Like, they played 82 games, so that's not a lot of wins. So I definitely think they can be better. And I think they're just building from within, and they're a team that has to do it this way because they don't really go out and get free agents. Remember, they hit luck with James Harden, Russ, KD, Serge. You know, they hit luck with them, and they didn't go out and sign them. You know, and now they're all gone at the moment too. So, like, I definitely think if they hit on their draft picks, it's still not a destination where players want to go play for, but it could be if they have all these talent, all these assets. So for me, I think OKC can definitely be better than what people expect. But guys, that's today's episode. You'll hear a little bit more about our outro, about how to follow us and all the good stuff. But thank you for listening, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Lanes Podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe all the content that's coming your way. Hit us up on Instagram at LanesMedia_, all under capitalized letters. Thanks for listening, guys, but most importantly, have a great day.